A whole entire year has passed since Sonic Frontiers released and took the world by storm. It's crazy how much time has passed already, but I figured now would be a great time to take a look back at the journey that got us to this point. Let's start back from the beginning. The Sonic franchise was in a pretty dark and confusing spot following the release of Sonic Forces in November of 2017. The game didn't live up to its promises and overall just left a sour taste in fans' mouths. Fast forward to late 2018, early 2019, we started seeing more and more of the upcoming Sonic movie, and it was... yeah, that. Kinda goes without saying, but it really felt like we were just taking constant L's at the time, with the only redeeming things to come out of this late 2010s era being Sonic Mania and Mania Plus, the Mania Adventures series and other animated shorts, the new IDW comics and Team Sonic Racing. These were all great and everything, but it wasn't enough to keep the brand exciting. But then, something changed. Sonic's movie design was updated to actually, look like Sonic, and the movie went on to be a huge success, performing extremely well at the box office and getting praise from the general pop. Then a worldwide pandemic happened that completely shut down the world and basically put the entire entertainment industry on hold. This resulted in a huge drought in Sonic content, the likes of which we've never seen since the series debuted over 30 years ago. But finally, to celebrate Sonic's 30th anniversary in June 2021, we got to look at some of the new stuff they've been working on. One of these was an extremely short teaser for the next big step for 3D Sonic that had people speculating for months. Remember when all we knew about the game was that Sonic runs through a forest and there's a logo that says Zap and the game was called Sonic Rangers? Good times. We finally got a more extensive look at the game's world during that year's Game Awards show, but still no gameplay. This drew pretty immediate comparisons to Breath of the Wild because we all know that game invented grass and open environments. But beyond that, people were worried with how hushed they were on the gameplay front. Another 6 months pass. Almost an entire year since the first teaser, we finally get a look at the gameplay through these IGN first videos in June 2022, and yeah, people were not happy. People were instantly calling for a delay, blaming Sega, blaming Sonic Team, blaming IGN, and even blaming the random homeless guy down the street. That was really not a great time for the fanbase, especially if you were like me and didn't hate what you saw. I genuinely saw the potential of what this game could be, and although I didn't love it, I knew there was so much more to it than what was presented. As the game's release closed in during the back half of the year, the marketing really ramped up and fans quickly changed their tune. The story trailer, main theme, ending theme, prologue comic, and prologue animation set the tone for the game's release, and on November 8th, 2022, Sonic Frontiers finally came out. So, how was it? Sonic Frontiers' selling point was the new open zone game formula, which was developed in response to people's ill feelings towards the boost gameplay following Sonic Forces. That meant we had much more expansive levels to roll around at the speed of sound. With 5, technically 3, islands to explore, does Sonic Frontiers' open zone gameplay succeed? In my opinion, it absolutely does. Just moving Sonic around in these environments is so much fun and really allows for so much freedom to express yourself through the movement. This is something the classic games prided themselves on that the 3D games have struggled to iterate on from time to time. You have a lot of moves at your disposal, such as the boost, lightspeed dash, homing attack, and wall running, to name a few, that give you a ton of options to work with. This really gives you the opportunity to carefully think about how you navigate around the world, or tackle any of the various platforming challenges. Collecting the memory tokens and other items around the world is genuinely so much fun because I felt like I had so much freedom in how I could go about doing it. I feel like Sonic Frontiers naturally evolves the gameplay in a way while yes, it's clearly following industry trends, it's uniquely Sonic if that makes any sense. Combat was another huge aspect of the game that just increased the overall coolness factor of the game and was a lot of fun in its own right. Sure, a lot of it's just super flashy moves that all practically have the same effect, but it doesn't really matter all that much if I feel cool doing it. Combat in Sonic has always been a difficult thing to get right, but this is really how I always imagined Sonic would actually fight, and it feels great. But in between all the running around, rail grinding, platforming, and combat, there are also puzzles to solve to uncover the map, and challenges including the Coco that progress the story. These are almost always extremely easy or simplistic, so not much to write home about them, but some can actually be fairly fun activities to break up the intense action. Now, for as exciting as all this new stuff is, they also wanted to keep something more familiar in the game to ensure people don't feel too alienated with the new direction. This resulted in the cyberspace levels of the game. These are 30 levels spread across 4 of the islands that use the more traditional boost formula gameplay with returning level aesthetics and level designs. This is probably the most controversial aspect of the game, and while I'm not really a big fan of having to play through Green Hill, Chemical Plant and Sky Sanctuary again, I actually enjoy these levels. The controls are definitely not as refined here as they are in the open zones, but what makes these levels really fun is actually the speedrunning aspect. Using certain aspects in the game such as the homing dash or rail launching can really give a new perspective on these levels and in a few cases actually improves them over their original counterparts. But if you just really hate playing the game and want it to be over as soon as possible, you can ignore all of that and go see Big the Cat. No kidding, going fishing is probably the easiest way to get everything you need to finish the game. It does cost fishing tokens, but you can collect those in the wild or wait for a Starfall event to farm a whole bunch of them, easy. The main objective of the game obviously is to collect the Chaos Emeralds on each of the islands and fight the new Titan bosses to save Sonic's friends from being trapped in cyberspace. And man, those bosses. I really wish I was making content back when the game first released, because I wish you guys could have seen my reaction to these for the first time. These are easily some of the biggest and most hype spectacle moments in the entire franchise's history, but you probably didn't need me to tell you that, like, just look at this. As soon as I got that final emerald on top of Giganto's head and Sonic turned super as Undefeatable started playing, I knew Sonic was back. Some of my favourite moments from this franchise are the corny shonen anime moments, and this game really delivers on that. Like the main combat, these bosses are definitely style over substance, but again, who cares if it's raw? I think it's fairly safe to say that they have a winning formula here with gameplay. It basically does everything right. It's a natural evolution of Sonic's gameplay that combines cool movement and flashy spectacle. It's definitely not perfect. It has its fair share of jank, and there are moments like the overabundance of 2D or automated sections in Chaos Island particularly that hold it back, but I can't help but just sometimes boot this game up to just run around and have the freedom of Sonic. The story was a huge draw of this game, as it would be the first game project featuring Ian Flynn as a writer. You'll know him as the main writer of IDW Comics and the post-reboot series for Archie Sonic. This was a huge W for us and resulted in the game having some of the best writing and characterization for Sonic and the gang in the whole series. The dynamic between the characters, their reactions to the different scenarios that come up, and everything just really feels super authentic and comes from a place of genuinely wanting to correct some of the mistakes made from the games of the 2010s. It's no secret that the writers of that era didn't care for the characters or the world, so they were simply doing a job and that was kind of it. So it's nice to finally have a Sonic story that feels sincere again. The plot itself isn't anything too crazy though. Sonic, Tails and Amy make their way over to the Starfall Islands after detecting a reading from the Chaos Emeralds, only to get trapped in cyberspace. Sonic makes it out using his speed, but his friends are still trapped, so it's up to him to free them and then restore them back to their original states. Along the way we run into Knuckles, whose story revolves around the beautifully animated prologue short that came out a week before the game's release. 2022 was really his year, between all the stuff he gets for this game and having a great adaptation in Sonic Movie 2. They really expand on established lore here a lot too, with the ancients being distant relatives of Chaos from Sonic Adventure, down to even looking pretty similar in design. We actually learned that from their egg memos, and I'd highly recommend you get all of these before getting to the final island if you want the most out of the plot. That, and they're just a great listen as a longtime fan of the series. Everything is canon, like no, literally, like they mentioned the Black Arms and the Babylonians. It's crazy. Everything is canon. They did not lie about that. All of this culminates in the finale of the game, where Sonic takes on the final Titan and faces the true enemy. By this point, I'm sure you know that most people weren't super pleased with the ending of this game, myself included. I didn't hate it as much as others, but I definitely wish there was more to it than just an easier version of the first Titan we fought and Ikaruga. That and the story itself just rushes to a conclusion without really feeling like too much of an actual ending. So, not really the best ending, but not the worst either. Now, that would be the end of this video if Sega hadn't done something completely unprecedented. An actual DLC roadmap for a Sonic game. Cue the gasps. But yeah, shortly after the game came out, they revealed their plans to release updates across the following year that added completely new content to the game. The first update was probably the lightest in terms of content. It included a jukebox with music from previous Sonic games that you could play around the islands, a photo mode where you can take photos, obviously. The standouts here are the Cyberspace Challenge and Battle Rush modes that have you go through each of the cyberspace levels in a row marathon style and fight all of the game's enemies across all 4 main islands respectively. These challenges were genuinely a lot of fun and could even be pretty challenging at times, which was another thing that the main game kinda lacked. They also added some quality of life changes and even a new extreme difficulty where one hit kills you. You just straight up die if you ever take damage. Oh, and they increased the prices for Big Fishing so you can't cheat. Have fun! This update was already pretty great on the merit that we were just getting more Sonic Frontiers, but they did address some genuine criticism the base game received. And believe it or not, it only gets better from here. In terms of the other 2 updates, I could go over them here, but I have 2 whole videos on them that I recommend you guys watch. I'd really appreciate that a lot. My opinions on them haven't changed since they released, but I'll just recap them here quickly. I loved Update 2. The Coco challenges were extremely fun and really pushed the more unique platforming style of Frontiers to a whole new level. The Open Zone challenges were also really fun, providing you with a free-flowing score attack mode that really gets you to think about the environments differently. Topping all of that off is that the reward you got for S ranking the Open Zone challenge was the Spin Dash. which in combination with the new deceleration options for Sonic's controls completely changed the feel of the game to make it even better. I forgot to mention this last time, but they actually also added a new game plus mode, which is really cool because you can play through the whole game from start to finish with your whole moveset. I guess I didn't find it notable enough to talk about last time for some reason, so there you go. Update 3 is the most recent and final update to the game that features an alternate final act that completely improves on the original in almost every way. Sure, it has its own problems that I made a point of in my review, such as the general lack of polish, but overall this completely addressed one of the biggest flaws with the base game. Playing as Amy, Knuckles and Tails again felt so great and makes me extremely excited to see how they'll handle them in future games. As I've said before, it's actually kinda criminal that this is a free update. Hell, all of these updates are completely free, which doesn't make them exempt from criticism, but it does show just how much Sonic Team cared about making this game as good as it can possibly be. And I would say that that mission was a success. I guess this would be a good time to move on to the conclusion of the video. At the start of the video I asked how the game was. To answer that question, this game feels like such a genuine attempt to bring Sonic back into the limelight in a way that he hasn't been since the early 2000s. After the success of the movie series, Sega clearly saw just how much of an audience there actually is for Sonic and allowed this game to get the extra time it needed to be fully complete. All that along with the updates to continue support of this game almost a whole year after its release, and their transparency with the community allowed this game to grow into the best 3D Sonic game we've had in over a decade and an instant fan favourite. Ignore Twitter for a moment, this game's sales figures and reviews speak for themselves, not to mention all the awards it's gotten regardless of their prestige. That doesn't just happen if a game is mid or even bad. Take Forces for example. That game didn't get anywhere near the level of recognition that Frontiers has. Sonic Frontiers may be a flawed game, but it's certainly an all-time great and paves the way for a bright future for the Sonic series. This one goes out to Sonic Team. Thank you Morio Kishimoto and everyone else involved in making this happen and then continuing to support it. We're only at the beginning of this one-way dream. Alright, video's done, and now so is the cheesiness. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and share it with a friend. As some of you guys will know from the streams, I'm shifting focus to making content here on YouTube for a while, so let me know what other kinds of videos you want. Reviews, retrospectives, edited gameplay, or just whatever else you want to see me take a crack at, I'll make it happen. Leave a comment down below, let me know what you think of Sonic Frontiers. Do you love it? Do you hate it? You're indifferent to it? I'd love to know all of your thoughts, but remember to always keep it respectful. Well, with all that said and done, I'll see you all next time. Take it easy out there.